Hi, welcome to the Q3 market webinar, where we're going to talk you through the latest insights in the technology space across all the verticals that we work in. If you have any questions, please leave them at the end. Yeah, hope you enjoy.
My name is Craig Sibley. I am the head of technology and data recruitment. And today I'm joined by Karim Romdhane, who heads up our BA practice as
Hello.
well. So today, what we didn't want to do was kind of sit here with a 17-page market report, read off the screen whilst you're trying to read and be engaged as well. So we've flipped it into a presentation. If you are interested in the actual market report and you've not already got that yet, just pop us through in either the chat or in an email separately, and we'll make sure that we get this through to you as well. So to kick things off, what we'll be covering is a market overview and providing some context around the economy and the impact that that is having. Then we'll do a deep dive into hiring trends across those major technology disciplines that we specialize in, and then some common challenges for hiring managers and job seekers as well. And then we're halfway through Q4 now, so we can give you a little bit of an assessment as to how that first 6 to 7 weeks has been. And then we'll answer any questions that you may have as well. So I'll kick things off with a market overview. So at the time of writing this, which was the back end of March, the economy was shifting back to be a bit more restrictive, and I would argue that it hasn't necessarily improved. Sorry, someone's just got their speaker on at the moment. So I'd argue that it hasn't improved. We're aware that the RBA increased the cash rate in March, but then they also increased it again in May. With inflation remaining high, it's no surprise to see that. But equally, organizations are being more disciplined around their hires as well. It's more hoops to jump through to get those approvals. Economic growth remains resilient, which is underpinned by that continued investment across the technology space, albeit it is cautious and it is slow. Especially with what is happening geopolitically, rising energy and food prices are starting to show now, and there is that persistent nagging inflation that just isn't budging at the moment, which is just providing uncertainty, and that geopolitical picture could end up looking worse before it looks better with what's going on as well in the Middle East. That said, Q3 technology hiring remained really strong. We did have one of our best quarters in terms of, I would say the number of deals, but across cloud, cyber, data, dynamics, HCM, AI, Salesforce, we are still seeing clients hiring, which is good, and it certainly exceeded our projections as to how Q3 was going to go as well. So I'll pass you over to Karim now, who will talk a little bit about the business analyst market.
Hello. So just echoing on from what Craig was saying, I think there is actually still quite a fair bit of activity going on in the technology project space. And I think the BA market tends to be a good indicator of the work coming up, given that it's kind of earlier on in the projects that they step in. So what we are seeing is actually quite a lot of demand for BAs, but it's being very selective in terms of what it is that is being sought from these BAs. And I think what we're seeing is actually two types of hiring. One is permanent hiring and building internal capability through BA practices, as well as really specific hiring for specific pieces of work where they require quite a lot of specific experience from these BAs who delivered relevant projects previously. So the market is quite active, but obviously given that the number of applicants and the number of candidates has increased quite significantly in the last few months, obviously there is quite a lot of competition for roles as well. It is looking positive, and we're certainly hearing of more roles coming through in that space as well. And the types of projects are looking quite large as well. It's not just, I think recently has been very much like little upgrades and small kind of uplifts, but it's actually now looking like it's going to be more, much larger pieces of work going through, much larger digital transformations. So Sydney and Melbourne obviously continue to lead demand, but Brisbane and Adelaide are gaining quite significant momentum. And yeah, it's looking pretty positive for the next few months. In terms of skills, it's still the same as the last couple of quarters. I think we're looking at specific ERP and systems experience for a lot of the projects. Data and digital experience is also something that's driving demand. And of course, the buzzword AI, quite a lot of AI experience, although there's not much you can get really, but understanding and awareness of AI is definitely something that people are now looking for.
Fantastic. So talk about the project and change space. Organizations are still investing, but it seems to be very much a priority-based investing. Typically you might have 4 or 5 projects that go up for a business case, but what's happening now is it's really only one that gets through, like the most business critical one. So it really is focusing on projects that have a clear commercial outcome, whether that be around cost reduction, operational efficiency, automation, customer experience improvement, regulatory. We're seeing a lot of that kind of transformation initiatives that without that immediate ROI, they are being delayed or put on pause. And I guess the cloud and AI and data center projects, they're driving growth for sure. The most consistent hiring demand has been in those large enterprise organizations and in the public sector as well, where it's, that long-term transformation roadmaps, funded programs, they're the ones that are being active. Mid-market businesses are taking a more cautious approach with slower approvals and tighter headcount when it comes to kicking off any new large programs as well. What we are seeing is there is a noticeable preference towards permanent hiring for those key delivery positions, particularly across project management, change and architecture in those kind of leadership roles. What we're seeing is businesses now want to secure that talent internally where possible, or upskill where possible, to provide that continuity, not losing the knowledge with contractors exiting and moving on and things like that, and really focus on building that strong long-term capability within the business. Project and change management has been getting battered for quite a while now, and I do feel for candidates in this space. There's 300 to 400 applicants for a role. Like how are you going to be making yourself stand out? We will come to that in the common challenges for hiring managers and candidates as well. But the good news is FY27 is around the corner, so we're starting to hear those conversations now about the FY27 plans and what that perhaps may look like as well.
Onto HCM and HRS. So that's led by our colleague Joe Foreman, who's been doing a lot of work in that space lately, and I think he's been kept pretty busy with quite a lot of demand. And I think what we're seeing is quite a big shift towards using consultancies a bit less, so less reliance on large consultancies, and a much stronger focus on building that internal HRIS capability, coupled with a bit of advisory-led delivery with that. And there's quite a lot of demand coming through for Dayforce-specific resources as well. I think that's been the more dominant growth platform. UKG is actually steady across all workforce heavy sectors in general, and the focus has been on workforce management, optimization, and maturity. The strongest demand we're seeing is for UKG dimensions and workforce planning skills. So I think similar to the rest of the tech market, obviously they're looking for quite extensive experience, and these roles tend to command slightly higher day rates. So proven transformation experience in that space will always command a higher day rate, but we're looking at average contracting rates between 900 to 1300 per day, and on permanent salary side of things, we're looking at the 140 to 200K base, plus super. That space is only growing. And yeah, Joe's being kept very busy. So definitely, if you have any questions or want to know more, definitely reach out to him.
This is cloud DevOps and site reliability, and this is with Agla. Um, I guess with cloud and DevOps and site reliability, that's one of them where AI is getting thrown into the conversation now as well. And it's what Karim said earlier around that AI savviness or awareness. And many organizations are now or have now completed their initial cloud migrations and are shifting forwards towards optimization, cost control, platform stability, governance, and security. There's an increased demand now for professionals who can improve performance, automate the operations, and drive that efficiency across existing environments as well. Cloud investment does continue to be growing year on year, and businesses are prioritizing that scalability, that resilience, that AI readiness, that modern infrastructure. And you will see there is quite a large number, well, I say large number, but of the programs, cloud transformation or platform engineering and infrastructure modernization, they are continuing to create that hiring demand, despite the broader market caution in that space. Demand is remaining strongest for senior engineers with proven experience across complex environments, large-scale transformations, and having that ability to not only just be a strong technical engineer, but to be able to communicate with the business stakeholders as well. The mid-level for those engineers in that space, the market is more competitive, with a higher volume of candidates available. And that's why businesses are now being more selective around those hiring decisions, and assessing those senior engineers that have got both the technical skills as well as the business acumen as well. As you'd expect there with the skills and demand, it's very similar in that cloud DevOps and site reliability space. I'm actually seeing a huge surge across Azure. Some of our consultancies that we work with, they are desperate for this sort of talent at the moment. But and then GitOps there is popping in as well.
And onto MS Dynamics, and that's led by Meg Freeman, who's also been kept busy in that space. And Dynamics actually been quite an interesting one, and this kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about we've seen a lot of projects rather than project uplifts. We've seen quite big transformations looking to be set up, and I think Dynamics has been part of that as companies look to engage, I guess, slightly more cost-effective platforms and ERP platforms and CRM platforms. And I think Dynamics has been part of that. And as companies look to adopt a kind of broader Microsoft suite, obviously that's been part of that with Copilot as well. So we're definitely seeing quite a clear uplift in activity across that Dynamics ecosystem. Business Central and Power Platform is definitely driving the strongest demand. That's what we're seeing. Obviously, legacy system replacement, and workflow automation is driving the hiring on that front as well. And I think there's also a big, strong focus on ERP, CRM, and general automation capability. So we're actually seeing 65+% of Australian small to medium businesses adopting Business Central. So it's actually quite interesting. And Melbourne and Sydney obviously Melbourne and Brisbane continue leading demand. And Perth is, shooting right up there as well. Obviously, Sydney has the strongest demand, but that's purely because it's just the biggest market. Copilot and automation is definitely driving that new investment in the AI space. Again, AI is just proven to be quite a big investment for a lot of companies, and Copilot being coupled with the Dynamics side of things, I think has been a really attractive proposition. So that's definitely that's definitely driving new project investment there. But the best, most skills and most in demand we're seeing are BC functional consultants, Power Platform developers and architects, Copilot automation and AI. It continues to be in demand as well, and obviously migration specialists as well.
Yeah, fantastic. cyber and information security. So this is with our colleague Hayley B, who is currently in Bali, living it up, and she'll be back on deck next week. The cyber market, it's been a bit of a peculiar one, to be honest with you. Like when you zoom out around cyber and information security, and you look at what happened with Optus and Medibank, like a lot of that cyber space, or that, you know, people within my network certainly were of the impression like right now it's going to kick. Now we're going to see organizations really ramping it up in this space. And for one reason or another, we are not necessarily seeing that as much as what we thought. Don't get me wrong, though, the demand for that talent is definitely strong, but it is highly selective as well. I think everybody's trying to get in that space, but what clients are looking for is like tried and tested, and it's quite difficult. There's this whole argument around CISOs, you know, getting a seat at the table, and it's kind of like a bit of push and pull, and it is challenging for quite a lot of organizations. But that said, it was a strong Q3. We are seeing more contract come out of that space as well, or contract permanent as well, or even potentially. You know what? Actually, I'd say I've seen more fixed term in that space than anything else. And then, you know, that identity access management and SOC and GRC, they're they're the niche skills that we're seeing pop up a lot. I think the volume of roles we had were predominantly in that identity access management space, and then we had a few in that governance, risk and compliance space as well. But yeah, it is definitely a tricky market. And it's kind of gone more to that risk reduction and operational effectiveness. Is kind of where we're seeing that in this space, really.
Just to add on that as well, I think what we've seen is where these companies are looking to bring in these larger ERPs or do these ERP transformations. I think cyber is always going to have a part to play in that. So I think it's worth looking at where these transformations are going on and seeing where you can join on these pieces of work as well. So it might be quite specific to some platforms as well.
Yeah.
Salesforce integration. So that's led by Chris, who leads the Salesforce integration stuff. So again, look, I don't want to sound repetitive, but there is cautious but consistent activity across those spaces as well. Looking at more so the optimization types of work as opposed to larger scale implementations. But Salesforce is obviously very popular and it continues to drive demand. Sales Cloud and Service Cloud enhancements are driving the majority of that demand in these projects of work. And again, generative AI is going to play a key part in that. And they have the Einstein, which is emerging as a key growth area for them. Salesforce integration, data and cloud and architecture, and Omni Studio seems to be the most in demand skill sets as well. And from an integration standpoint, MuleSoft does remain dominant for the more complex enterprise integrations, and Boomi is definitely growing in the mid-market sections. I think it's a slightly more cost-effective option, and I think the way it integrates is obviously a lot better as well. But yeah, similar to what Craig was saying, Azure seems to be quite popular, and the Azure integration services is a key growth area for integration as well. So yeah, API design and microservices is a key skill set as well as the Azure integration and MuleSoft and Boomi as well. I just had a question there as well.
I'll come to
leave it to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, salary wise rates similar to the rest of the tech market, but between the 130 to over 210k mark on the base for permanent salaries, and up to 1,600 a day for contracting rates. And that's obviously for the more experienced architecture level resources I was saying.
Yeah.
And then just to kind of touch on the contractor and salary and contracting inside, similar to what we've been mentioning before. There's not really been too much of a change in the rates since the last quarter. Obviously, given that a higher demand in how many candidates are in the market, we are probably seeing a slight decrease in rates on offer, but it's not really too much of a shift, and I think it's still fairly competitive. Um, I think where there's a lot of push for moving towards a more permanent resourcing as well. I think that's being where contractors are moving to permanent resourcing. Maybe that's been driving the permanent salaries slightly in some spaces, but overall it's been pretty steady. So
Mm,
there's not really too much of a difference
yeah.
there as well. And again, the higher rates and the higher salaries are reserved purely for the really experienced specific resources, is what we're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what's bringing it down slightly would be those candidates that have perhaps been on the market a little while or longer than they would like, and they're willing to kind of clients are squeezing and saying, "Oh no, we can only offer 800 instead of what the market rate would usually be 9." And candidates are like, "Well, 80% of what I used to get is better than 100% of nothing," and that's kind of bringing it down slightly, but um, overall, it has remained relatively steady across the board there as well. So what can we expect for Q4? Well, organizations continuing to invest across technology, data, cloud, cyber. However, that hiring is becoming more selective with a stronger focus on high impact business critical capability. And we've seen that. I mean, we're 6-7 weeks in now. April was a challenging month for us as a business. We like whether that's down to what's happening in the Middle East, whether that's down to people, obviously Easter, Anzac, people going on extended leave, but it just felt really slow. Like getting feedback on CVs, interviews booked in, it's just felt sluggish. And I've been speaking with clients and candidates, and then they've echoed the same as well. So it has been a bit of a slow start to the quarter. Having said that, 2 weeks into May, we're seeing it start to go back to what it was in Q3 as well. Businesses are focusing and prioritizing on talent that can deliver outcomes quickly, navigate that complexity and bridge between the technical and the commercial and the business across those transformation programs. And we're seeing that with the roles that they're looking to hire as well. It's very much a hybrid techno-functional role now, where they're trying to probably cut down on cost instead of hiring one technical, one functional. But yeah, it's definitely something that they're focusing on there as well. Organizations that can define requirements clearly, move efficiently through processes, and align on hiring decisions will be the ones that are best positioned to secure that top talent. And as I say, we're halfway through. We're just kind of preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. But so far, May, it is starting to pick up again, isn't it? Like April was a bit of a wobble. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there.
No, I think it's looking it's looking to continue pretty much on from where we left off. But yes, there's a lot of stuff happening, so it's looking exciting
Yeah.
for the rest of the quarter, at least for sure.
Yeah. Excellent. All right. Question time. Let's go. Look.
So from Naveen, how about Wakato? Do you guys see it? Um, I'm guessing that's a question
That's
for
it, isn't it?
Chris.
Yeah. That's what's the integration slide. Naveen, with that one, yeah, integration. Yeah.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, with Chris, what he has tended to focus on is those three, and he's got those three mapped out. So he's got Boomi, AIS, and what's the other one? Literally just spoke about it. MuleSoft. Yeah. So those three are kind of where he's focused at the moment. But if you do want to know more about that, it's definitely worth having a chat with Chris Lane on that one.
Denise, any insights into contract type based on those rates, time and materials versus fixed term contract, offshore hiring pressures on the Australian talent market? I mean, the daily rates are based on time and materials rather than any sort of fixed project type thing. But fixed term contract, if you're asking if that's impacting the rate, like offshoring, I guess it would do to some extent in some markets. I don't think it's obviously offshoring is a cost-cutting measure anyway, so naturally the companies are going to be looking to do that if they're looking to save cost. I don't think that's necessarily bringing the rates down as such.
No. To be honest with you, there, Denise, I'm actually having conversations with clients where they're actually already looking at onshoring talent again. Certain things are good for offshoring with finance and ops, but anything around like those technology that, well, I guess the verticals that we specialize in that involve that people to people skills, like we're not seeing much of that go offshore. There's some elements, but it's just the cycle, isn't it? Really,
Yeah.
like it goes offshore, and then like this isn't working. There's too many holes here, and then we bring it back onshore, but we're not seeing that impact rates or anything like that. It's more what's going on geopolitically that's impacting that, to be honest.
Yeah. So Mohammed, what is the trends for talents going offshore and social? Oh yeah, so we just kind of covered
Yeah,
that, haven't we? Um, so given that end of financial year starts in 2 months, do you
that's the
see
year.
any hiring freeze or slow hiring in BA space? I'm not seeing any hiring freeze in the BA space. I'm
Yep.
actually seeing an increase in BA roles, but as I was saying before, I think the types of BA roles are becoming much more selective and much more specialist. So the slow hiring is happening, but that's more because companies are taking their time in hiring those people. I guess it does come into cost in a sense that companies are looking to get the most value out of the budget they have. So they're trying to kind of fill a bit of a wish list. So yes, that is slowing down the hiring, but definitely not seeing a drop in demand for BAs, that's for sure. If anything, I'm seeing probably an increase, to be honest.
Busiest you've ever been, eh?
Yeah, there's a lot happening, very luckily. But yeah, obviously there is a lot of candidates, um, and yeah, it is quite competitive.
Yeah,
So that's
I would say that this time of year, typically things do slow down. You know, processes slow down, and because people are looking, they've got one eye on FY27. But if there's a need, there's a need, and we're not seeing that necessarily slow down across any of our spaces. It's just more thoughtful, considerate, and specific, I guess. I saw you type in there, Denise.
it's a big one coming.
Any other questions from anybody else whilst Denise is typing there?
Quick question for me, guys. It's Jonathan here.
Hi, Jonathan.
Just the impression I got from the presentation was the market seems to be heading more towards permanency versus contracting. Is that the right take, or is that
That's
off the mark a little bit?
Yeah, no, that's a fair assumption. So,
I think
from our analysis as a business, our perm hiring was 60% in Q3 and 40% contract. But we are seeing definitely more perm, which in retrospect, that is actually showing confidence in the market if people are hiring perm resources.
I think there's a much bigger demand to grow capability internally rather than either use consultancies or get contractors in who might potentially leave with IP after a few months down the line. So yeah, there is a big push that we're seeing on permanent, but obviously there are some programs of work that you can't build on permanent resourcing, right? And there is still a big contract demand that we're seeing. But yeah, there is a push to permanent capability in a lot of companies that we work with at the minute. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for that. It's interesting stuff. And also, just thanks for running these sessions too. I always find them super helpful.
No, all good. Happy to.
Appreciate that. Oh, service now.
Uh, got a question for you, Craig and Karim.
Yeah.
Chael here. Are you seeing a change in the market for BA leadership roles, or are you seeing it mostly a demand for BAs or senior BAs? Like, are you seeing that markets are asking for that, or there's a need, or if it's not, then what is the gap that's needed there for you guys to create the roles or to work with teams to actually facilitate that they've got more than one BA and they're needing to coordinate amongst the group or needing I suppose, high-level support?
Yeah. So from a BA leadership standpoint, I think what we're seeing is, firstly, the majority of the demand we're seeing is in the senior BA space. We're not seeing too much demand for BA leadership in terms of helping with hiring in that front, but obviously that is still happening. What we're seeing is internally in companies that BA capability is being grown by people who are proven within the business. The way that's being built, it really depends on organization, on the type, on the industry, how they function. You've got some companies that have practice across an IT sector and an operations part of the business, or they've got some companies where they've got multiple practices. So it just really depends on the company. But yeah, for leadership stuff, we tend to see people be promoted internally more than hired externally, is what
They've
I
got
would.
that credibility, haven't they, I suppose? And
Credibility, they understand a lot of the time as people who, again, are permanent resources who have been there for a little while. They understand the business and they can kind of speak to the pain points. And there's not really much of they're not looking for people to come in and change the BA landscape. They're looking for someone to build a capability. And I think there's a slightly different skill set involved there.
All right, last one there. Sorry, Manaj, you got your hand up there.
Yeah, hey, thanks for the session, Query and Karim. So it really helps a lot. Just want to understand in the senior BA market, like how, because they're mainly hiring freezes because of the end of the financial year. So how would you see that? Like, is there any contract positions, the market trend for the contract position in the senior BA market?
Sorry, can you repeat that? So what's the market like for contracting BAs?
Yes, for the same senior BA.
It's good, but yeah, like I said, I think it's busy. It's just very specific. We've got roles where the wish lists are, look, you can call them silly, but it's just clients trying to maximize what they've got out of the budget they've got from the BA. Like Craig was touching on before, I think there's a demand for people to be technical, but be also strategic and be able to speak to the business and be able to be hands-on. So there is demand there, but it's definitely driven by those roles are filled by people who are highly experienced, high specific, and or people who are actually quite broad. So it's just two kind of sides that we're seeing. Rates wise, there's a little bit of it depends on the role, it depends on the exact requirement, but we tend to see for the specialist roles actually that there's a slightly higher rate being paid, whereas for the more generalist BA type roles, we're seeing that the rates have been kind of a bit stagnant. They're not growing too much. So I don't know. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, you did. Yeah, thanks. That really makes sense.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad you all enjoyed that. If you would like a copy of the market report, please do either pop a message in this chat and then I'll be able to send that through to you this afternoon. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next one.
yeah. Cheers, guys.
Thanks a lot. Enjoy.